Let's continue working on this report to answer the research question about the differences in worldviews and their effect on perception of plane risk. Actually, we don't know that it's an effect because this is not a true experiment, but at least see if they're associated with perception of plane risk. So I had created my plots to look at the conditions for valid inference. I also went and looked at the standard deviations in the table to help with that. Now it's time for me to actually do my inference. And so I'm going to go back up here. I noticed that I didn't hide that code chunk. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to hide that code chunk. And now it's time to go ahead and do inference. So for that, we're going to look at an analysis of variance. So I think I have put in the code for that. If not, it's very easy because we've already built the model. Here it is. You can see what I mean about it being very easy once you've built the model. Now, just trying to copy the whole code chunk, but I was grabbing other stuff as well, so it's just as easy to put in a new code chunk, put in my analysis of variance. Let's hide the chunk, but show the output, and let's see what it looks like. Oh, I need to make sure everything's run up above. There we go. Okay, so there's my analysis of variance table. And my analysis of variance table is showing me the sums of squares, degrees of freedom, mean squared, the partitioning basically of the sums of squares and the creation of the mean squares. Now, if you have watched previous videos, you know that I do not always recommend showing output straight from R, and in fact, I would actually prefer to make this table a little bit nicer, not have this $sign in here for plane risk score. But given that I don't want to go into using another package for creating tables, we're going to go ahead and live with this. And we are going to go ahead and show this in our report. You might ask, well, why? Why am I showing this in the report where I haven't showed others? Well, in other outputs, such as the summary for the model for multiple regression, you're getting a whole lot of additional stuff that you're not talking about in your report. Number one. Number two, you would never see output like that in a journal article, but you do see analysis of variance tables in a journal article. Again, if I was preparing this for a journal article, I would use a package that allowed me to make this table look a little nicer, but we're going to go ahead and live with this. But typically in this kind of study, the ANOVA table is shown in the article. And so I am going to go ahead and show this here. This is going to be table 2. Table 1, remember, were my descriptive statistics. This is going to be my inferential statistics, ANOVA for perceived risk as a function of worldview. I'm going to go ahead and put in some narrative about this. And notice how small my p-value is in that ANOVA table. So I'm going to mention that in the narrative. Table 2 is the analysis of variance for perceived risk as a function of the three groups. We can reject the null hypothesis of equal means, p less than 0.01. And I actually prefer always to put a 0.01 and conclude that perceived risk is associated with worldview. Let me go ahead and put some additional space here. We'll see how it looks when I knit it. But right now, I think that's it for my analysis. So let's go ahead and knit it and look at the analysis, and then we'll write the conclusions. Okay, right now I'm just scanning to make sure that everything looks good to the eye. Okay, looks pretty good. And this is not bad. I mean, this table here, the way it came out, does not look too bad. I do have these NAs that I wish were not here. I had these doubles, DBLs that I wish were not there. But without loading in another package or without bending over backwards to do a lot of stuff to clean that up, that is going to be the way we're just going to live with it now. If you ever take an R course, you'll learn how to fix that up. Or if you're ever going to get ready to publish for a journal, I know that you'll look into how to fix that up. And at that point, I could help you with that. All right, let's go to our conclusions now. And let me go ahead and copy in and I really already pointed out to you the main points up above in the description, but we'll just add inference to that. And again, I realized that I had the hierarchist mixed with the egalitarians. So I need to switch that. All right, I examined the relationship of worldview to perceived risk of frequent airline travel. Sample results suggest that there is similar variation of perceived risk among individuals in each of the three worldview types, yet the average perceived risk is about 12 to 14 points lower for egalitarians than it is for either individualist or hierarchicalist. Using analysis of variance, I can reject the null hypothesis of mean equality. My p is less than 0.01. And conclude that there are differences in the average perceived risk based on worldview in the population represented by this sample. Ready for my press release, which again, I'm going to have to correct my one mistake about mixing up hierarchicalists with egalitarians, but here is what I have. Social researchers at the University of South Carolina recently conducted a study about the ways that people with different worldviews perceive risk, such as the risk of frequent airline travel. The worldviews studied were based on a two-dimensional social framework developed by anthropologist Mary Douglas. In this framework, individualists are less inclined to consider group norms and expectations. Egalitarians also do not feel confined to make decisions based on the social group, but they do believe in the benefit of group solidarity. Hierarchicalist, I just want to be consistent throughout, even though I think there might be multiple ways to say it. Are most inclined, I'm going to go back and make sure that, hierarchicalist is how I said it here, are most inclined to see themselves as needing to consider group norms for choices that will benefit the group. Researchers found there is a higher sense of perceived risk of airline travel, about 12 to 14 points higher on a 100-point scale for both individualist and hierarchicalist. Than there is for egalitarians. They are 95% certain that the differences in perceived risk found in this study can be applied generally to these worldviews, but more study is needed to determine if the size of the difference found in this study will be consistent with what is found in later research. And basically what I'm saying there is that I do know that there will be a difference. I do know that I expect there to be a difference among these three worldviews in terms of perceived risk, but I don't know that it's going to be 12 to 14 points different for the two groups than it is for the egalitarians. More study is needed to determine that. And to make headway into more study, we will look at additional videos as we continue this topic, because what we have answered is the question about, are there differences in these worldviews? What we have not answered is, can I be certain of a difference between hierarchicalist and egalitarian, individualist and egalitarian? And what about that small difference between individualist and hierarchicalist? Is that a difference that I can infer to the larger population? So we've made great headway up to this point, but more is still to come in order to complete our work in looking at modeling a quantitative response variable from a categorical variable. Let me go ahead and knit this to take one last look at how it all looks here. And I think it looks good. So that will conclude this video, and I will see you as we start to look at how to be more specific about these differences among the groups.